DVD. Hi, welcome to Dogman Teepee Hunting on YouTube, and if you're listening on podcast, it's a Interdimensional Voyagers podcast, in association with Seventh Sanctum, as you can see just up. If I put my finger up in the corner up there, yeah, somewhere up there. Yeah, that's it. So we've been associated a little while now, and it's been great. And I've got with me Kerry again. Hi, Kerry.
Hello, Phil. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I love these
Oh
little
no,
chats.
I love it. I love it. It's great. Yeah. Even though I've had to close the windows because the kids are playing outside in the street and they're like kind of playing kick the can or chuck the bike or something, causing a hell of a noise. So I had to close it. And if I put the fan on, it's causing too much noise with the mic. So I'm in the same boat as you. It's like hot, sticky. It's just, oh. But
It's
yeah,
not
other than
nice.
that, no, really good. No, it's not. No. So recently we went back to the Ironworks.
We did. Yes, we managed to get in before they changed hands, sadly. So Ironworks is a organisation that's based in Southend, and they supported the community by providing reasonable entertainment and mother and baby groups. All sorts of things were going on. So it's a community-based project, but the building itself is so old. So as we found out in the
Yeah.
investigation, um,
Yeah.
so it had so much history there, and it makes me smile actually. I follow a couple of urban explorers in Essex, and one particular urban explorer had visited the old theatre in Southend,
Oh, okay.
and it's amazing inside. You know, it's still very
Ooh.
kind of much intact, but just looks really, really old. They've got a security guard there now, so there's no more urban exploring. But I commented on there, and someone said, "Why would you want to investigate there? Because you don't know if someone's died there or not." And I think that's a really good subject matter. Maybe we can cover this evening in
Mm.
terms of investigations and people's expectations of the paranormal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that sounds good. Is that theatre still used as a theatre?
No, it is an amazing building. It
Mm.
still has the theatre curtains and the seats, and it is amazing. It's opposite Alexandra car park in Southend,
Oh.
and it's boarded up. But it seems that a lot of people would go in there and do urban exploring. It seems that they now have a security guard, but yeah, it's really interesting. I'll share the post onto our like page and into our group. You can have a look at the photos. They're really impressive.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds also interesting, doesn't it?
Oh, I
Ah.
saw it and I was like, my spidey senses was tingling, was what I was trying to say there, because
Yeah.
I thought that's
Yeah.
phenomenal. But yeah, I kind of commented, would love to do a paranormal investigation in this location, and then someone had commented, why would you want to investigate somewhere where no one has died? And I thought that's a really interesting kind of comment to make because of the assumptions that we make when we go to locations, assuming that if someone's died there or if they haven't died there, it wouldn't be haunted. And we haven't got that natural connection to locations that might draw us back. We're not thinking about, stone tape theory. We're not talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
residue energy. We're not talking about intellectual kind of spirit. So I just think it was a kind of really simplistic question, reduced it quite a lot. It was very kind of reduced to, but is it haunted though? And it took away the air of mystery of kind of really dismissing what we don't assume to be the paranormal or what would be paranormal either.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to recap, they said that why would we want to go there if nobody has died there that we know of?
yeah, well, he made a very bold statement to say no one had died there. So I don't know if he was the font of all knowledge. But
Right,
again,
right.
it also brings up
Mm,
that question. Not everything is documented. How far back is this building? We
mm,
know how
yeah,
poorly
yeah.
things, and I go really far back, and I'm not saying the building is
Mm,
as old as this, but when you think back to Jack the Ripper and the way that things were documented back then and how
mm,
poorly things were done, and then the progress that we've made when it comes to documenting deaths,
yeah.
it's interesting. Bearing in mind that
But,
the Witchfinder General past Southend was in Leigh-on-Sea, the dunking pool in Leigh-on-Sea. He murdered 3 women literally around the corner from Southend-on-Sea. So
oh,
there is a high level. I think there's just an
mm,
assumption. Very interesting that he made such a statement. Um,
uh.
this
So,
the evidence.
do we, do we, do we have to? Is it a case that we have to go to places to investigate ghosts, spirits, entities? Do we have to go to a place that we know that they have died in or people have died in? Or can we go to maybe an old, disused, no longer open Tesco's and
Absolutely,
think, right, is a valid point, isn't it? I mean, because people have still used it, it's still got people have still had emotions in that place. People have in that theatre, people have laughed, cried, probably had their first kiss, probably uh, broken up. Um, there's been mixed emotions in that place. Is it a case maybe that it doesn't necessarily necessitate the need that someone has to physically die in a place, that their spirit, maybe when you die, it's a case of, it's a place that, I'm going to go down the theatre and I'm going to frequent down there when I die because it was a cool place. And I remember kissing Rosie Jones. And that was the first time I kissed her. And it was a hell of a kiss. I'm going to go down there and haunt it. Maybe it's a case of
absolutely.
that.
And also, we're making again. I'd use the word assumption because I feel like you made a really bold one, but that theatre was the beginning of time for that location. So what was there before the theatre, if there was anything there? And would it been somewhere where people would have travelled and could have something happened?
Mm,
So and also, again, we're making another assumption that the haunting is going to be human, which we ourselves, on our own experience at the location was at the weekend, isn't always the case. So
no.
it's interesting how sometimes I feel like it's out of fear. I'm very much the same when it comes to UFOs, where
Mm,
sometimes ignorance is bliss, and I'd rather not know. I'm not saying they don't exist, and I'm not saying they do exist. I just don't want to know if they do or don't. So I think sometimes it comes
mm,
from fear, but that building was absolutely stunning, even in the condition it is now. It's absolutely beautiful. It's steeped in history. It's been there for God as long as the ironworks has been there for, and then what was there before? And you make a really good point when it comes to supermarkets, because again, what was there before the supermarket? When you think of the South
mm,
End supermarket, you've
yeah,
got massive
yeah,
Sainsbury's. What was there
yeah,
before that?
uh,
So
exactly. Mm,
it is.
yeah.
I think we do ourselves a disservice if we just look at a building. I mean, I love it. I love going out and looking at buildings and going, "That's absolutely haunted. Get me in there."
Mm,
But also when we look at places and go, "No." And again, we go back to when we went to the Ironworks the first time. When we had our group, when we took our group round for the first time, we had the lady
mm,
that said, "It's flat. There's nothing here. We're not going to get anything at all." And that is how our investigation on that evening started with our group. We went to our floor, and the lovely lady with the blonde hair, the one that you
yeah,
filmed,
yeah, yeah,
and then how
yeah.
and literally within half hour, we had the most amazing evidence that was being able to be validated by research that we did literally after it come about. And we had
Yeah. You see,
K2 and sorry.
yeah, you see, I've got a theory about that. I've got a theory about that. And a lot of what I think it is, is um It was the lady. There was that lady there with the older lady with the that I filmed that time, that I got on a short video, that picked up on the entity in that toilet place, whatever it was, that tiny little room, and she said somebody killed themselves there. Somebody killed themselves there. Um, and there was that older chap as well with the leather jacket. Lovely old boy. Um,
Yes.
Uh, he
Yeah.
was another one. Now, I've got a theory, and my theory is this. Um, Probably wrong. I'm usually wrong, but um, they themselves bought the entities, manifested the entities themselves somehow, or the entities wanted to show themselves particularly to them, because that day it wasn't nighttime, it was in the afternoon, late afternoon, but still afternoon, so it was daylight, going into late evening, but at that time daylight. And uh for all intents and purposes there was so many people there. I honestly went in with eyes wide shut, thinking to myself, do you know, are we with so many people? It's almost like going into a concert. I'm not really gonna, because I'm used to really going out either on my own or maybe with one other person. But in a big group like that, I thought, oh, I don't know, so many people, well, it would scare off ghosts, wouldn't it? But no, just the opposite. I was very surprised. And she had a lot of activity happen around her, and a lot of activity seemed to happen when she was around. So that was very interesting to me. Do you think it was her? Do you think the entities?
I agree, and I believe on that particular evening there was at least 40 people in the building, and there was only
Mm,
5 floors, well, 4.5 floors, and
mm,
that's, we were working on quick rotation. I do believe that the energy was quick, kind of fired up, that there was an amplifier there, because you had mediums working, you had intuitives working, you had healers working, irrespective of what you believe a medium is or what you believe a healer is, irrespective of that, we all know that energy is real, and that
mm,
energy is something that can be measured. And I
yeah,
believe that there was a lot of energy in the room, and that can come from not just mediums, that can come from clapping, singing, dancing. That energy can be used to kind of help with that manifestation. We
yeah,
also run the risk of that manifestation of self, the perpetuation, the false collective, you have that as well. But I
yeah,
think what was really interesting is no one knew any history of the location before we started. No one knew of any passings that I'm aware of that anyone spoke about. It's the first time anyone had investigated the building at all, ever. So there was no prior things to go on to. When you look at, for example, 30 East Drive, for example, that's so published. You've got so many people that go in there every week. It's
yeah,
so over investigated that it's easy for people to find out what other people have done and what they've got and what to expect. Whereas this location, we was the first to record in there, we was the first to investigate in there, we was the first to do anything of any sort paranormal there. So
yeah,
I've with the lady with the blonde hair, she went in saying nothing was going to happen. However, she was the one that was most affected by a spirit that evening. And then the gentleman with the leather jacket, I'm thinking, there was two gentlemen with us, wasn't there? Um,
the
and I
older
do,
one, the
yeah,
older
that I
guy.
do feel like, yeah, yes. So yes, I do believe as well that he worked in a way where, yes, there could have been things there that could have been brought with them.
Mm,
And I do believe maybe
mm,
there was a lot of us there. Potentially, people could have brought their own with them. Um,
yeah,
but it's really difficult to say. And when we think back to when we did the investigation at the weekend, the energy was completely different.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, I agree.
It
I
was,
agree.
it was completely different energy.
Yeah. Just want to say hello to a few people out there. Hi, Kate, and Steve from Paranormal Walks. dropped in. And we've got the Equilibrium Collective. Yeah. Yourselves, yeah. 7 seconds. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us. It's really cool. Um, I like the place. The first time I went, I think because it was something completely new to me as a group. And even when I went out on the flat roof outside, uh, it was now with cameras, I'm okay. I'm pretty good with cameras. And when I go out, I usually know what what the shutter speed is. I'm a real nerd like that, to the ISO, the amount of light, got light meters, and da 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 da. I went out on that flat roof, and blow me down if it wasn't just misty. That was another thing. I went out and it was just mist, like a mist, but there was no mist around Southend-on-Sea, but out on that flat
Yeah.
roof, misty, and it was all kicking off on that top floor at the time. With that older lady, because she was
Yeah.
in a bit of a state of trance at the time. And then we heard the bang, and that's when I took that shot, Kerry, with the still camera over by the doorway. And I caught it was afterwards. I looked, and very out of place. It was all. It looks like flowers. It looks
Yeah.
like flowers on a doorway, halfway up the doorway, that had been thrown, and maybe the vase had hit the door frame, and the flowers were going across. Um, it was all just like really, yeah, just yeah. I must admit, it was a really great place to visit. I feel absolutely honoured that I went with you. Thank you very much, because it was a real eye opener. Um, If you guys, if you don't mind, what I'm going to go try, Kerry. I've got a little short video that I made of it. I'm just going to put it on. It's about 3 minutes or so. That's all. I'm just going to put it on just to show the people. So I'm just going to change our layout if I can quickly. To do but dump like that. And then let's. Anything's here? Let me know. Anything's here? Let me know. It, he came up and said it wasn't me. I didn't fall. I was pushed. Last time I was here, I heard a bang, a very loud bang coming from that doorway there. You can make that sound again. Please do. See, it was over here that I caught orbs, and like over here, there was a shadow being. So I'll post those pictures up a while. Well, I'm going to start it off now. I'm just going to shut up. So if you want to have a play with the witch spells, by all means. The hair on your hands are standing up. You saying that, it does look like a monster. Oh, sorry. Did you drive me? Did you drive me?
But when I was down there, constantly in my face, on my leg, and then next thing I felt that on my arm, and I was like, what's that? And it was yeah, but it's only light, but no idea.
So it touched your arm.
It's like all over constantly. Like I was getting my knee squeezed. I got my like side of my leg was squeezed. I could feel someone doing this to my face constantly. Yeah, my nose. And I was like, this is weird. So I kept saying, can you touch someone else? And they were going, no, don't tell them to do that. Um, yeah, yeah.
Elemental. Are you keeping spirits here? Okay. Right. Yeah. So that's just a few excerpts that we split up into two groups. So Kerry was with her small group, and I was with Laura, who's part of the Seventh Sanctum as well. Good friends right from kids with Kerry, and she's really good, Laura. She's also no nonsense, isn't she? She's absolutely no nonsense, and she would love nothing more than to capture something bona fide. She's not one to make something up. So I love being with her because she's just nuts and bolts getting on with it. It's great. And a jolly good laugh as well, I must admit. Which,
Yeah, this is
uh,
true.
yeah. So if we have got the video out there, both on the Seventh Sanctum Facebook page as well, and on YouTube. So it's out there. It's a long one. It's because we've done a stream for 4.5 hours, a little bit over that. But we wanted to get everything, so that basically it's one of those things that you can kind of see a bit, have a meal, go to sleep, wake up, see a bit more, and maybe if you catch something, let us know. Because there's lots that we kind of like, miss. It's one of those things you can go back to, almost feel like reference material, if you like. Um, there was stuff that, yeah, in a video that we picked up, there definitely, it's a strange thing, Kerry, that at the time, why is it that we don't hear these things at the time, but on recording, when you listen back, you can hear footsteps, but at the time you don't really hear them.
No, and I have something I've got to tell you actually, watching that back. But me personally, I feel it's frequency. That's what I feel it is. I think obviously we listen on a frequency and things are picked up differently. And sometimes we can turn things up on the video recorder. We can't do that with unless we have extra, we have contraptions in areas. It's difficult. There's a lot of things that can't be heard with our own natural ears, our own natural hearing, and our own natural eyesight. That's why it's really good to have all these other extras, the cameras, the different, like you said, different shutter rates, the different infrareds. All those
Mm.
things help us see a little bit better or hearing a little bit better when we do our research. But I will say this: it's so funny that you heard steps on that particular that staircase. So just for a bit of context, that staircase is on the fourth floor. It's on the actual floor itself. It's an original wooden staircase that goes up to a half floor. Um, Years and years and years and years ago, that top floor would have been a restaurant, and the larger floor, the floor that Phil was on when he was talking about the footsteps, that was like a waiting area and stuff like that to go up. Um, I saw feet. I was with little Laura,
No.
and I was standing on the stairs because I was going to use it as a trigger object because obviously it's so old, it's wood, it holds energy. I was thinking, let's just sit here, and I'm gonna wander off by myself. And I will be honest with people, I'm not the bravest in the dark. I am one of those that's go, I'll sit with the CCTV with the lights on, but I am getting braver. So I wandered off
Yeah.
by myself, and I went to sit down on the step. So I've put the K2 down, and I've just looked up, and the staircase kind of goes up and then takes a sharp right up, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you've got
Yeah.
the doorway at the top. So I've
Yeah.
looked up, and as I've looked up, I just saw this foot leave the top step into the room. And I
Oh
went,
my word.
hello?
Oh.
And because I'm
Oh.
thinking maybe it's Vicky. Maybe it's Vicky. maybe Vicky's
Yeah.
here because Vicky was Vicky is the lady that
Yeah.
looked after us really well throughout the
Oh,
evening,
she's
made sure we
lovely.
had water, and it was
Mm.
yeah. So I'm thinking, and upstairs is the roof terrace, and there was a electrical storm. So she was watching an electrical storm, and it was a full moon. Where we had full moon, electrical storm, perfect, wonderful. So I'm thinking maybe Vicky's just gone back upstairs. Maybe that's what it is. And I'm going hello, and then little Laura come over and she went, "Are you okay?" I was like, right, I've got like a little torch. I'm just gonna shine up quickly, just quickly, and I want you to see if you think that from this angle it looks like there's a foot or it's a shadow being cast. Maybe it's maybe it's the banisters. The
Yeah.
banisters have caused that effect as I was moving, and I'm doing it,
Yeah.
and I could not, for the life of me, recreate it. And I said, literally, someone just walked up them steps and walked into that room. But with
Oh, that's
that,
strange.
we'd got to the honestly. But we were already getting ready for us to go into the basement because that was the piece of the resistance, wasn't it? The basement. It was like the
Yeah.
best
Yeah.
part of the whole
Yeah. Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we'd spent quite a lot of time on that top floor and that kind of like that
Mm.
full floor. Um,
Yeah.
so we'd done automatic writing up there. We'd been doing human pendulum up there, which we've got some video of. We
Uh-huh.
were doing some sensory deprivation up there. So we'd done quite a few experiments to try and get
Yeah.
different means, different ways of being able to, get more meat to the bone really when it comes to the evidence
Mm.
we're gathering. And I just was just before we wandered down, I was like, "Right, I'm gonna go sit by myself and just kind of see and take some photos." And yeah, went to sit down on this step, leaned forward, looked up. I don't know why. Maybe something caught my eye. Maybe I thought maybe it was the movement, but I don't know why. I just looked up, and then there was this foot, and I was like, "What is that? What is
Did,
that?"
did, had a
Ah,
shoe on, didn't it? Did it have a shoe on?
it had a
Did it
shoe.
have a
Yeah,
shoe?
it had a shoe on. Yes,
Was
it
it a
had a
male
shoe on. It
male
looked like
foot?
It looked
Male
like a
foot?
lady's foot. It looked like a lady's, or it was either a little man or a lady. But yeah, very kind of not high heels, flap shoes.
Mm. Yeah.
Um,
Because
and
the
yeah,
footsteps sounded quite light. They weren't male footsteps. So there's another thing.
these were yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
yeah,
These were very light. When I'd
very
listened back,
interesting.
yeah, very, very interesting. That see, little things like that. I didn't know about you seeing the shoe. Had no idea about that. You kept that to yourself, you sneak.
No,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, had no idea.
you know what? We'd done that, and then we went to we had like a little break because the whole evening was full of drama, wasn't it? Because when we first arrived, you had the gentleman
Mm.
outside the building who was suffering with a real medical emergency. Laura in first aid mode and taking care of them. So literally, as you come, that kind of all dwindled down. We had to wait for the ambulance and stuff. So it
Yeah.
just seemed like a lot had happened. So there's lots of stuff I think as we go on, that actually when we start unpicking it, we'll probably see that there's lots of common because throughout the evening, Phil, me and yourself, we didn't investigate together, did we? So you and Laura did yours, and
No.
then I took my small group with me. I had
Yeah.
4 people. There was 4 of us all together.
Mm.
No, five of us all together. So we kind of did one
You had,
end, you did the bottom end, and then we swapped,
yeah.
didn't we? Because we didn't want to
Yeah.
interfere with each other's
Y-
evidence gathering. So,
No.
but yeah,
No. Which is a good thing, isn't it? Because, like that, for instance, footsteps are definitely, and you can hear footsteps on the staircase. And it seems like the footsteps are coming from above and then down the staircase. That's the way it seems to
yeah.
me. And, uh,
And
I,
actually,
yeah.
we had that last time. Actually, we had that last time when we were in doing the big group investigation.
Yes.
We were on that top floor and we heard someone come up
Yeah,
into the room, and I said
we
hello
did.
because I thought it was Vicky coming up. And
We
it's the
did.
same step. It's the same place that I saw the lady. Oh, I saw the shoe. Sorry.
Yes. Yes. So she could be on a loop.
Oh,
She
do you
could be
know
on a
what?
loop.
I wish I remembered that for this time because there was probably things that we could have done there. Maybe put a trigger object there or kind of did
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
on that top step to
Yeah.
see if it could got
I
disturbed in any
know.
way.
There's lots of things, but it's a learning curve. It is a learning curve, and I think it's like it's like with I mean with the thermal camera. I tried my darndest with. Well, I think what it probably was now looking at it, because I tried it in my phone and it worked first time. I think with Laura's phone, maybe it was because she hadn't. Maybe the phone wasn't updated the software, because this thermal
Right,
camera
yeah.
is like brand spanking new, so it has to be with the latest Android update. So it could be that. Could be that. Laura's the first one.
Knowing
She put her
Laura,
hands up. Yeah, but she put her hands up. She went, do you
yeah.
know, Phil? I've got no idea how it works.
That's exactly she sounds. She sounds like Phil from EastEnders, doesn't she? Exactly how she sounds. I'd agree with it as well.
Yeah. Followed
Yeah,
by an expletive, and then I don't care.
absolutely. That is
That's
Laura to a
Laura.
T.
Yeah, that's Laura.
Yep,
Bless her heart.
absolutely.
Um, yeah,
But you're right. She is no nonsense.
mm,
She is no
yeah.
nonsense. She wants to get
No, she's
evidence, but
brilliant.
she does want. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Because we found we had during the filming, you'll find that you'll hear like screams of laughter coming from the floor. Laura and myself were on, and that's because we found
yeah.
crocheted woolies in a box, and it just sort of it's one of these stupid when you've got really childish, stupid humor like slapstick humor like I've got. Um, the slight crocheted willy will be hours of fun to me. Absolutely hours of hilarity I'd get out of that. And this was a whole box of
Wait,
them.
there was. They're done. So sorry. Joys
Okay.
of living along the seafront. So the actual building itself was holding a masculinity art exhibition. Again, it's a community
Mm,
project, so they did lots of things within the community that revolve around music and art and all wonderful stuff. This particular floor had a masculinity exhibition, which had art and photos, and they'd done things on the wall. But amongst this was a basket, and when I say like a grandma Red Riding Hood basket
mm,
full of the most
mm.
creative
Knobs.
life in most fantastic, yeah, plentiful, bountiful, yes,
Bountiful knobs,
absolutely.
really.
And but
Yeah.
they were being and they were being raffled off. So
Mm,
yeah, there were
yeah.
still the raffle
But
tickets next to it. You could either
yeah,
win a bountiful basket full of penises or a pot of mushy peas. So we seen. So yeah, that was
right.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was quite another thing. I think it probably helps the energies, though. Don't you think it helps the energies with like no having like. I'll tell you why, because when we were having like we were laughing, childish, stupid laughter over these crocheted knobs, and it was then we heard knocking on the glass. So the room's very long. This room, and we're on the fourth level, I think it is. Well, no, third level, isn't it? Kerry, that one, the third
Third,
level, I think.
yeah, third,
Yeah,
yeah.
still very. So each individual room is the same height and length. As the ascending room or ascending room above it, except for the very top room, which is only half of them. So, and it's got a large window at one end overlooking the main high street, and then another slightly smaller window overlooking towards the sea on the other far end. And no side windows, because think of it like almost like a terraced house type thing, but more of a
But
factory, old
huge,
factory.
like a
Huge,
yeah,
huge. Yeah, yeah, massive.
yeah.
And we heard what done it was on the film you'll see that we're laughing and oh look, more knobs everywhere. Ha. We were doing that. And Well, we stopped dead because we heard a knock on the glass. It sounded. Laura turned around to me and said, "My God, that sounds like someone on the glass, Phil." But we're all height wise, there's no way anyone could get up that high. There's no way. That's third floor up. And you're talking each floor maybe about 10, 15 foot, maybe, I'd say, because they're high
Yeah, huge
ceilings.
ceilings. Oh, huge ceilings, yeah.
Um, and we heard tapping on the window, so much so I like kind of we went silent and went over to the window. I went over to the window to have a little look and see, what was over there. But very distinct tapping. So whether or not it is energies, maybe it is that, if you walk about and like, oh, just like, oh yeah, it's ghosts. Oh, there's nothing here really. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, what time is it? Oh, it's late. Oh, I still not seen no go. But maybe if we're laughing about knobs and laughing our hearts out, that's what it needs. That's what it needs to manifest, to come towards. Or the lady that was with us before, the older lady, who had the energy of, she really entered the building knowing, almost knowing, and wanting, kind of like almost dragging the energies out. She was, I could feel it in her. She was almost dragging the energies out herself. um Maybe it is that the extremes of emotion, whether it's laughter over knobs or dragging emotions out, and maybe it's the extremes that it uses in us. And that then brings me back to a
Hmm.
case of, does it matter that anyone's died there? Maybe it is a case that these entities, these ghosts, the paranormal, that we see fleeting through our realm, maybe they are just fleeting through, Kerry. Maybe they are just, maybe, obviously, God forbid, because everyone would miss me. But if I was to die, maybe I would think to myself, well, I'm just going to fleet through, because they always say that for the first, after somebody dies, the first 3 days, the spirit hangs around to say goodbye to relatives and stuff. That's true,
Yeah.
isn't it?
There's a really interesting study by Konstantin Karatkov who researched the soul leaving the body. He used the body mapping that I can't remember what it's called, but it's where you go if you have a sports injury and you have the scan done. It's all red and yellow and green. He
Oh yeah.
uses that. Is it Kion Kieran photography or
Yeah,
can't
yeah, yeah, yeah.
pronounce.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, Russian-based scientist. Yeah, Kirill, yeah, Kirilenklov or Kiriklov. Yeah, I'll have to Google it. I'll have to
Constantine.
Google it. But yeah, it is. I know the one you
Yeah,
mean. I know you mean.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
his name's Konstantin Karatkov, and he's the one who did the mapping of the body. And what he done was he done research on what happens to the soul, what parts of the body does it leave first, and in particular, it looked at what happens if there's been a sudden or passing or an expected passing, and he was able to document the soul returning to the body up to 3 days after a sudden passing, returning to the body and then leaving again, returning to the body and leaving again. But yeah, I mean, he's very interesting. And when you talk about locations, I did a little bit of research on geo mapping and heightened activity around positive geos. And he did a lot of work around that. He measured the vibration of locations when you think about holy grounds and people that go there, mass people go and worship,
Mm,
in comparison to those that's not, and being able to recognize that the vibrations are completely different because you've got that people. It goes back to, can locations affect people, and can people affect locations? And that's essentially what we had a little bit of when we think about the ironworks. Like, there were so many
mm,
people, there were lots of different energies, and like you said, the lady that was trying to draw those energies out had that impact on the location that she was in.
mm.
However,
Yeah.
we are aware that when we went into the with less of us being there, especially last weekend, the location had a bit of an impact on us, especially
Yeah.
in that basement. I've never felt. I didn't realize, this is how tech savvy I am. I didn't realize that our CCTV records in on the box. I thought we needed to have an external something for it to save onto.
Yeah. I had no
However,
idea.
it does. And I've looked back
Brilliant.
at some of the recordings, and I've looked back at your recording, and
Mm.
in that basement, when we're down there, for the last half hour, every single one of us are so shifty. Me and little Laura are continuously looking over our shoulder, looking behind us, trying to see what's in front of us. I've never felt so unnerved in a location before than I had then.
Mm.
It was so
Yeah,
strange.
yeah, yeah. It was Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot. How you doing, man? Lovely guy. He said also, if a spirit goes into the light, they can come back if they have family business. Is that would you say that's right? I think that's true. I think that's absolutely true. That's right.
Yeah, and the way, I mean, everyone has different perceptions, and different ideologies about what that looks like. And for me, I have a spiritualist background. So for us, we're just working on different vibrations. So
Mm.
for us, heaven, or my perception of what heaven would be going into light, it could be just a foot higher than what we're in right now. It's just a different vibrational pull. When you think back to, or when you think about a time when you're in bed and you're just about to sleep, you're in between worlds, you're conscious, you're aware, but your body's completely sleeping, in that relaxed state. And then you hear
Mm.
your name being called. You hear someone
Yeah,
going, Phil, and you go,
yeah.
yeah, and you go, wait, there's no one else here. So the belief in the
Mm.
spiritualism is that actually we are rising, we're kind of altering our own vibrational level, and that we are moving with them, and we're working on their vibrational level. So that's how we're able to maybe see faces when we're asleep, hear voices when we're in that kind of altered
Mm.
state. So that's kind of how we perceive that to be.
Mm.
And absolutely, we do believe that there's that connection. Again,
Mm.
if you think a little bit about mediums, being able to communicate with loved ones doesn't necessarily mean they're not, you know, in
Yeah,
the place that they wanna be.
yeah. No, no. I agree. I agree. I mean, nighttime is a funny thing. When do you ever wake up, or if anyone's listening to this, have you ever woken up hearing a bang? So much so that you think it's the front door, and you've woken up. Oh, I can hear a bang. It is a phenomenon that happens. Um, but I've heard that before now, and I found that very disconcerting. Very loud bang. I've heard, and it obviously, you get up. I get up. I have a little look round. I go downstairs, and no, everything's exactly the same. But but maybe that bang is a door shutting on another realm. Um, yeah, Stuart's heard that bang as well. He said, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a funny thing. It's a See, I'm a believer. I must admit, I do believe that uh, spirits um, and aliens that we consider aliens, there is a strong analogy between them because they need us to witness them in a way to exist. Um, uh, they also move, and when I see spirits moving, whenever you've seen a spirit move, Kerry, they kind of like, and they move like smoke, but they kind of like drift, but they a lot of times they drift, uh, and they stutter. They kind of like go along, stop, almost speed up, and then drift on at the same speed. They kind of a bit like the way UFOs tend to move. When you see a UFO, they kind of like almost like they stop and warp and move on and stop and move on, and they're kind of like slightly stuttered in their movement. Uh, and I've got, I don't know, I think that everything that we're witnessing, I think, has got a central origin to it, but that's just me. I think it's got a central origin to it, and I think that origin, and you'll see where I'm going here, and this will lead us on to the next thing. I am heading towards something. That central origin, I believe, um, is more, what's the word, religious. um no, I'm not. I am a Christian. I don't shove it down people's throats about Jesus, about God. I choose to believe in God. But if others don't, that's fine. I think there's got to be somebody up there. There's got to be something up there anyway. I did have a bit of a moment when I was younger, though I really did was enlightened, if you like, for about a period of 3 days, totally enlightened. But that's another story. Um, but I think it's got a central origin. I think a lot of times it is a battle between good and evil, and I think that a lot of the origin that we're dealing with is demonic origin, and that takes me nicely, and I said, great, really, to the elemental that was down that you said and Laura picked up on down in the cellar. Can you tell us a bit more about that, please?
Yes. So, um, well, actually, we'll start from when we decided that we were going to have a quick break. So Phil and Laura comes up from downstairs, and we come down from upstairs, and we are all kind of sitting outside. And I look at Laura, who is my bestie for the resty, um, and she looked completely bewildered. And I said, "Are you okay?" So she said, "Yeah, I'm okay." I went, "Are you sure you're okay?" And poor Phil probably thought, "Why do you keep asking if she's okay?"
I
And
did.
he was
I
like,
wondered. I thought, yeah.
and I was like,
I felt guilty. I felt guilty about something. I thought, what have I done to Laura? Nothing.
"No, you hadn't done nothing at all." But I know that face. I love that face. It is a face that
Mm,
I've seen every day since I was 11. And she looked really overwhelmed. And I said to Phil, when she pulls that face, then that's her saying that she's not comfortable.
mm,
But not because of anything Phil had done. What had actually happened is she said, "Kerry, I've had a really difficult experience downstairs. I don't want to tell you anymore." And that's why she was going, "No, I'm fine," because she didn't want to influence my experience. She said, "I don't want to go through it. I don't want to talk to you about it anymore. I want you to go down and just please tell me what you think." So that was that. I was like, okay. So I was like, well, as long as you're all right, and Phil was looking after her. So off I trotted, and Phil and Laura went off to go and see the penises, and we went downstairs in the basement. So we're in the basement, and we're sitting around, and it is deathly quiet. Now, this location is literally on the high street. It's Southend is like a mini London. It just doesn't sleep.
mm,
There's people going down on the highway. They're all shouting. They're either going out for a good time or they've just come home from a good time. But either way, they're walking past the Ironworks. They've got a
mm,
KFC one side of us. They've got something else on the other side of us, and then there's a train station directly in front of us. So literally, and cars. There was a one-way street as well, right opposite where we were. So there was
mm.
so much noise going on, which was a bit of a nightmare because we couldn't have the windows open as much. It was hot in there. Anyway, so in the basement, it is silent, like so quiet. It's almost like being in a soundproof room, which was
Yeah.
really weird. So
Mm,
there's just the four of us, and we're sitting around in a circle. Me and a couple of the members had already gone down in the when we first started. We went by ourselves. We set up some CCTV. We kind of pointed the cameras so they're all focused into the center of this circle that we created, and then we put the chairs, circular chairs, inside with some trigger objects and the witch bells, which you also heard going off in the video. Um, we'd had some activity there last time. I'd gone down there by myself when I went and first visited the location, and I saw a shadow figure at the end of the room. And as I went to walk past it, which is in the center of that room, is a really old original staircase that kind of goes to nowhere because it's been um, floored off. And then there's also an elevator, an escalator, an elevator that's also been
yeah.
floored off so it doesn't go anywhere.
Mm,
That's also in that basement. And again, it's huge. This is a huge building. So we're at the far end, and as I'm walking towards this shadow figure, because I'm thinking, oh, I just want to see what this is. Let's just see, let's see. So I walked over, and with that, I felt someone grab the back of my arm, my elbow, and I was expecting to see my friend. Then I turned around, and she wasn't that side. She was on the other side. And again, this is dark. There's no light down. There's no windows. We're underground. And then when I look back, it had gone. So this was the first experience. So I kind of geared up the next time we went, did the investigation. I really wanted to get into the basement. We didn't get to spend much time there, but my partner spent the whole evening down there. Got to spend. It was a quick rotation of groups. And my partner's like 6'2", and he's huge, just a big guy. And yeah, as soon as he was down there for more than 5 minutes by himself, he was not waiting around. He was coming back upstairs, and he come and found me because he did not want to be down there by himself. He'd also spent the evening hearing what everyone else had to say. So anyway, so when we went there, we had some experiences, but nothing, too crazy. We had some K2s going off, and we had kind of like a little bit of sense that like people picking up on things. So this time when we went back, we were like, we've got the whole building to ourselves. There's 7 of us, whereas before there was 40. There's 7 of us. Let's make the
Mm.
most of this because we're not going to get back in here. We'd gone downstairs in the basement. Laura had gone up with Phil, and they were having a great time. We're looking around upstairs, and we were in the basement. Straight
Mm.
away, it was very ominous. Like it was very uncomfortable. It was very difficult to sit in there, and have become very aware. Um, and we had the K2 going off, and we were making contact with someone, um, and they were going red. Now, bearing in mind we'd done a baseline sweep, there was
Mm.
nothing in there that was going to affect the K2. There was no source of energy. There was literally what we had plugged in downstairs, like the CCTV, had to be connected to a plug socket on the first floor. There was no power in the basement
No,
at all.
none. No.
So, and again, the basement was huge. Not even the lights were working. So we had the CCT set up, but from the power source upstairs, and it was if you look at Phil's video, you can see how far away the screen is in comparison to where we're sitting. There's just like a little grey square right at the very back that you can see. Um, so we're sitting there, and the K2's going off to red, and there was, hello, is anyone there? Does anyone want to communicate? Red. Um, are you a man? Are you a lady? I know we spoke a little bit about with my co-host on Seventh Sanctum about, us correlating a book of things to ask spirit, because, my kind of bank of questions is very kind of like, what to ask now? So I try to keep it a little bit, a little bit more different to, are you a man? Are you a woman? Do you know what year it is? And
Yeah.
I said, are you a gentleman? Nothing. Because I'm thinking this isn't human. This isn't a human spirit. And I was like, this is a mimic, or this is a trickster. This is something different to what I'm used to working with. And again, I'm not implying or suggesting anything at this point to any of the team members. We're still asking questions. And I said, are you a non-human spirit? And it hit red. And I was like, okay. I was like, this is really old. This is really, really old. And for me, what I was picking up on, and again, this is such a subjective experience, and it's hard to be able to measure that, because it wasn't something that we wasn't getting loads of information from other sources of equipment, because the spirit box for the first time the whole night was just dead. Nothing at all. Nothing was coming through. Never had that before. Um, in that part of the evening, sorry. The only thing that we could really rely on was the K2. We had the cat balls, and I've won, the infamous cat balls. But we had
Mm.
movement. We had those being hit. No reason whatsoever for that to happen.
Mm.
Um, and then I got a scratch on on the inside of my arms, and I'm pasty white, so white. I look like a baby goldfish, see-through
Mm.
baby fish.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I had this big red mark come up on my arm, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, okay, I'm not sure whether that's something that's just happened. I'm just becoming aware of it. Um, but it seemed to be playing on people's fears. That's what I got. And we had the app that you'd brought. We had some really interesting things that come up on that. And what was a bit uncomfortable for me was, it read that it said Mary's son, but that's not what it sounded like it said. It sounded like it said something completely different. So, and
Can you
again,
repeat on
this,
here because is it
it
possible for you
sounded
to?
like
Mm.
Kerry's son. That's what it sounded like. It said Kerry's son.
Okay.
And me and another team member was like, what did that just say? And then we looked because obviously like a speaking spell, and it said
Mm,
Mary's son. So I was like, hmm. And the other lady was like, that's not what I thought it said. I said, no, that's not what I thought it said either, but that's what
mm,
it said. That's fine. We had other things come through when we was asking about the K2, and it was saying, this is my only response. That's what come through the speaking spell. This is my response,
mm,
or something like that. Um, and then since then, members have had uncomfortable dreams where fears have kind of been playing out, but they originating, no, they originating, the origins, God, the origins of it always seems to go back to that basement. It's just
mm,
so strange. So I feel like, I don't know if it's, I'm
mm,
not going to say it's demonic, because for me, my belief in spirit is that if you're an a-hole in life, you're going to be an a-hole in spirit. I'm not saying that there's not evil spirits or demons. I'm not dismissing that whatsoever. But I do believe that the person that you are in life is who you are in spirit. Typically, if you're not going to learn your lessons, um, so I don't know, but I just know that it felt not human, and that's how it
mm,
validated itself as not human, being otherness and quite old. So that being said, all of a sudden we hear Kerry's son, and I said, "Did that say what I think it said?" And the other girl was like, "I think so." And then said it was like, "No, it said Mary's son." And then with that, I heard, "Hello, Kerry," and it was you,
yes, me,
because
yeah.
all
Mm.
of a sudden, the
We had
the
we had walkie-talkies.
walkie-talkie,
Mm,
yeah, all of a
yeah.
sudden the walkie-talkie on your end
Mm.
activated like someone was going to talk, and you thought I was going to
It
moan
did.
because of
Yeah.
Laura's laughing.
No, because as people know, I mean, with the walkie-talkies, I've got we got 10 channels to choose from. So we like we in this instance we had I put both talkies on channel 5. You can get bleed through on them. You can get interference and bleed through on any radio device. But on the whole, these ones are pretty good. I've used them out in woods and forests and all sorts, and you don't get an awful lot of bleed through on them. But yeah, when Laura and myself were up on this was on the think on the fourth floor at the time, and it started making that noise. I thought, oh, and instantly I thought, oh, it's Kerry. I better see what she wants. And that's when Kerry, you're right. Everything okay? Well, have you found anything? And she just shot me down in flames. Shot me down in flames. No, basically, I'm busy. I can't talk at the moment. No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I can't talk. Just go away, Phil. Go away. Don't worry. And I was like, right, okay, okay then. um,
I think
you know,
I
I,
think it was
I,
I think it was
I,
more of, Phil, your timing's impeccable. We've just made contact.
yeah, I know, yeah.
I shall speak to you
Laura,
later.
Laura looked at me like, and she was nonplussed. She knew you so well. She went, yeah, probably, yeah. Just don't you sod off.
She's terrible, isn't she?
That was bad timing, though. That was bad timing.
Oh,
I had the feeling, Kerry, when I was there in that cellar, I had the feeling. All right, two things. I was in. I've only ever come across a rake once, and a rake is a very tall, long, spindly, ugly-looking thing. Its head is ginormous. It's usually very, very white, very pale, very spindly, but no morals. Um, uh, uh, extremely, extremely vicious, violent thing. Very, very rare. Last time I came across one was I was in Cheddar Gorge, and I was doing my usual thing of going into a nearby overhang of woods in Cheddar Gorge. There's a large overhang of woods, and I thought, oh no, I'll go up the bank. So I'm dragging my poor limp leg up this bank. and I spotted something moving next to, it looked like a cross. So on the edge of the woods, and it was a just like cross. And that's what caught my attention. So I got I had the long lens on a digital SLR Canon, and I put the long lens on, and this thing's crack-a-lacking, it sucks in so much light. And I zoomed in on it, and got a picture of the cross. Next thing, I got a picture of this in the distance, right by the cross. This 1 minute it's not there, next minute it's there, and you can quite clearly see it is like this long, spindly, large-headed rake thing looking down onto the gorge. But even though I was at distance, I have been closer to them inwards where I think they've been there. And they give off the same feeling as I got down in that cellar. Exact same
Yeah.
feeling. It's a very distinctive, quite almost like
Yeah.
impending doom feeling, and like a blanket of um it's not a case of I'm going to creep up behind you and sort of like get you feeling. It's almost like a
I
feeling
mean,
of yeah, I'm
it
here,
is.
and
Yeah.
it's all encompassing feeling of black, kind of
Yeah.
impending heaviness.
And
Doom.
always, we were constantly looking behind us. We were constantly looking over our shoulders. We were
Mm,
constantly, what's that? Did you see that? We literally saw someone come. So the way that the room's set out, it's a huge, long. I mean, it's massive. It's like a car. It's yeah, it's huge, but it's really long. And we was at one end, and then you had this freestanding, beautiful original staircase in the middle of the room that's kind of sat in the center of it, and then it went straight down again, and then to your left was the stairs up to the first floor, and there was light coming from there into the basement because there was obviously the
mm,
stairway, so we needed to make sure that that was well lit. And we all saw something walk from that, just from away from the staircase, in front of, like, coming down into the basement, and then coming in front of the staircase. We heard it as well. We could hear footsteps. So I said, "Is that Vicky?" And one of the other ladies was like, "That's what I thought it was." And we're sitting there, nothing, no one. And I think what made it even worse, so after we'd finished this, we'd come back upstairs and Laura was there, and I sat with Laura, and she went, "What did you get?" And I said, "It feels like an elemental." She went, "That's exactly what I said. It's exactly the same feeling." She went, "I had to get out." And I understood what she meant, and I understand what you're saying, because I wanted to sit there and I wanted to research, but I also wanted to run. Like, my amygdala was like,
mm,
"Get out of here." So
mm,
I wanted to get out. But at the same time, I'm like, "No, look, let's just, I'm not antagonizing. I'm not aggravating. I'm being respectful of the space. It's
mm,
an uncomfortable energy that I'm sitting in. I'm not sure why. I don't know why it's an uncomfortable energy. I don't know much about this being that we're having communication with, but at the same time, wasn't being disrespectful towards it. I wasn't, we were there, we were being quiet, we were just there. We were just like, we would like evidence of life after life in a way
mm,
that means that we're still alive and that we can document this. Yeah, so that's all we would like. Um, but yeah, when I got out, I could understand why Laura looked the way she did, because it wasn't a
mm.
sense of, oh my God, there's so much going on, I'm overwhelmed. It's, I've sat in a really uncomfortable energy for a
Yeah,
long time, to the
yeah.
point that my whole body was telling me to leave and I didn't, and now I'm dealing with the adrenaline that's running. I'm dealing with that flight or fight that's kicked in. I'm
Mm,
working within that ancient fear system. I've got to work through this now. So there she was outside having a cigarette, and poor Phil, I'm going, "What did you do to her?" And I never said that at all, but that's what it sounded like, didn't it?
yeah, I know.
Like I was
Yeah,
doing.
that's right. Yeah,
I weren't at all. I weren't
yeah.
at all. I
Funny
know
when I
we're
went.
in safe hands with you, Phil.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was where I went back into the cellar before we left, and I thought I'm going to give it a shot on my own, because it was something about that. There was something about that down there that was reminded me of something, and I think it was because, like, kind of the same feeling that I got, and that's what I couldn't get two and two together because I was in a building and I wasn't in the wood. But I had the same feeling as I get when I'm in the wood. And people that do this and go into woods will know this, where you get this scopasepia, where you just know you're being watched. There's something there, and you get when you're close to something like a cryptid, you have a feeling, you know it. You just have a feeling that it's there before you even see it. And that's what I was getting in the cellar. I was getting that same feeling in the cellar, and that feeling of like a sort of a dread feeling. So I went back down. When I did, you saying about the staircase, I thought you two silly buggers were walking up and down the staircase leading into the cellar because I saw a shadow pass on
Yeah.
the top of the stairs because the light is on the
Yeah.
top of the stairs facing
Yeah.
down, and the light comes down in past the stairs into the cellar. I
Mm.
wanted to shout out, but I thought I won't because it's spoiled the ambience. And it's dark and it's like how I want it to be. It's like, I want something to come forward. But I looked over where the stairs is and I saw the shadow like almost sweep past really quickly in between like the light and the staircase. Almost like as if someone was running past the top stair. Uh, but it was enough to cast a slight shadow on the stairs. Um, I never mentioned that before until you mentioned it just now that people noticed it. Another
So
thing
yeah.
I shall mention, I on Monday night, was it Sunday? I think it was Sunday night. I woke up Monday morning. I woke up about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I usually wake up because I'm that age where I have to wake up and go to the toilet for a wee. But I woke up not because I had to go for a wee. I woke up because I had a bit of a nightmare, and I don't usually have nightmares. Very, very
Yeah.
rare, very rare. And the nightmare I had, I can't remember the beginning of it, but one thing that stands out in my mind is there was this guy, and he was by almost like in a factory of pipes, and a pipe was in the cellar. So he was like in a factory. Almost, tell you what, you ever seen Freddy Krueger movie when
Yeah.
he's in that steamy
Yeah.
pipework
Yeah.
cellar? A bit like that, right? With pipes above his head and stuff, and no steam, but just pipes. It was sort of like shadowy and dark. This guy was wearing a long black um, coat, almost like not leather. It was a cloth coat, but long single
Yeah.
piece, long black coat. Um, and he was grey to silvery hair, quite long, um, white face, dark eyes, but he was beckoning. Let's get it right with the camera. Right, like that, like this to
Oh.
me. I swear to you. And it woke me up because he wouldn't go away from my dream. You know,
And
when sometimes you're dreaming and you're dreaming so deeply, and you almost know you're in a dream. It's like a lucid dream, and you kind of like you'll drift it onto something else almost. But it
yeah.
was so horrible. The feeling of him was so horrible that it woke me up.
Yeah.
If that makes
And
sense,
that's
does that
what
make sense?
that is what I'm saying, that there is a lot of people that investigate that location that had nightmares that night. And so the
Mm,
next day, when we spoke in the chat, I said whoever that being was played on fears
mm.
and plays on
Uh,
fears potentially.
Now that is not a lie. I swear to God, that's not a lie because my Mrs. Roxy, I woke her up. I elbowed her because I gave her the elbow. I said, "No, wake up, wake up! You won't believe it." Because I wanted to tell her to let her know that what I was dreaming about in case I forgot. But as it turns out, I didn't forget anyway because it's just that I can remember the guy's face. I can remember his
Yeah.
face. Um, so yeah, that's before you just mentioned about everyone having nightmares. I had one as well then. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really strange. And that's what I mean when I say when we first started the live and I was talking about how we make assumptions of what a building should be or shouldn't be, because there might not be no previous history, or there might not be documented. That's not to say that there isn't something there, and the beginning of that era is not the beginning of time. So there is layers even where I live now. Where the place that I lived wasn't always houses,
Mm.
it was a nightclub. So it's kind
Oh.
of
Mm.
like, um yeah, so you can imagine, and not everything's documented.
No.
So I think that's why it's so good when you do when you do paranormal research. It's always good to kind of, yes, have an understanding of the history of the location. So, for example, like I said, Leigh-on-Sea is a fantastic place. Leigh-on-Sea in Essex. Witchfinder General, he reigned and wreaked havoc up and down the country, but Leigh-on-Sea was in his raft and he murdered
Mm.
3 women there. The Dunking poles that he murdered them on now has a block of flats built on top. There is a documented lady who proclaimed to be a sea witch. Her name was Sarah Moore in Leigh-on-Sea. So in Leigh-on-Sea, you have the Sarah Moore pub, you have where she would have worked, you have, there's so many parts of Leigh-on-Sea that have documented. She has a burial there, she has a grave there. She was put into a census as well. You can have an understanding of what happens in her life. But it's when you have people that build on that, that becomes a problem. So Sarah Moore was a woman that lived in Leigh-on-Sea who passed
Mm.
away. She had a couple of husbands. She outlived them. She had a hair lip and a cleft palate. She lived a really old age. She used to do washing, so she used to carry around a sack. And she claimed to be a sea witch, and she would charge sailors a fair trade. Leigh-on-Sea is a really old fishing town. She
Right.
died. Then 7 years later, you had the great storm of like Thames flood, huge storm. The locals of Leigh-on-Sea say that that storm was created by Sarah Moore. Sarah Moore had died 7 years before. But even though that's the case, the folklore, the superstition says that Sarah Moore caused this massive storm because someone refused. There's so much detail to the story. Italian sailor refused to pay a fair wind, and so because what she used to do is tie string to wind. And depending on what kind of wind the sailor would be what kind of tie she would tie to it. And he refused it and laughed at her. And she caused a massive storm, and his ship sank, and he got a axe and he hit the bow of the boat 3 times with an axe. And when they come to shore, Sarah Moore had 3 axe wounds in the back of her head. This is the story of Sarah Moore. This is the tale of Sarah Moore. However, Sarah Moore died 7 years before this storm happened. So this is when we
Mm.
need to be careful, because if us as a paranormal researcher, although witchcraft, it depends whether you believe in that or not, or what you perceive witchcraft to be. If you was to say, if I said to you, Phil, we're going to go to a location, I'm going to take you to where a sea witch worked, because I can take you there, I know where it is. And she was murdered there. And so we go with that perception of this murder being taken place, and then we start perceiving the evidence that we're gathering
Mm.
to validate our story. We're
Mm.
perpetuating that even further.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Because
history
you've
is
given
really,
that. Yeah, you've given
yeah,
me that preconception of one, a witch,
yeah.
two, being murdered. So yeah, of course, I would instantly start making up the story rather than telling me absolutely nothing and just going there.
Or even just knowing, yeah, there was a lady here that lived to a really old
Mm.
age, and there is history. You've got Sarah Moore pub there. You've got, she's. I can take you to her grave. I can take you to where she
Mm.
lived. I can take you to where she works. I can take you to all these places because they're
Mm.
real places. They exist. But whether she was a witch or not is neither here nor there. And she
Mm.
definitely wasn't alive during the Great Storm. So what I think is important for us, and the reason why I'm sharing that is because we went to the ironworks with no perception or idea of what could be there. I think if we'd gone in being told that there was an elemental there, or there was, a being there that was negative, would we have had the same experiences? Would they have been worse? Would they have been better? Would we have got more evidence? Would we have got less evidence? Um, but we can know enough about the ironworks to know that there's history there. We know that it was an ironworks. We know that there was a plane that went down in Leon Sea during the war, and a lot of people would have come there to seek refuge. We know that. We know it's not far from the seafront, and at one point that would have been marshlands. We know that. So
Mm.
there's things that we do know that would make sense, but not enough for us to be able to develop a character and then investigate the alleged character rather than the history of the location.
I took my dogs to Leon Sea, uh, to a little foresty bit, and in it you've got, before you go in, it's free parking up the little lane, and then you've got like a clubhouse where it's got a cafeteria in it. As you walk up on the left, and they do ice creams and sandwiches and whatnot in there. And then you go walking on, and in this foresty bit, or wood actually, you go through, and it's got sculptures. Do you know the one I mean, Kerry?
Yes.
It's got wooden sculptures in it. It's got one of an old man with a flat
Yeah.
cap on, sculpture,
Yeah.
that one. Where he is, if you turn left, that takes you into a nature reserve. There's a nature reserve there, which is like kind of they only allow dogs on leads, and you've got to be a little bit more careful than the wood you're coming out of, because it is a nature reserve and it's got salamanders and newts and all kinds of different protected creatures in there. I went in there, and I was looking around, and I saw evidence of what I believe to be fairies. Um, Sometimes you get like little fairy doors on trees, at the base of
Yeah.
trees, and offerings, seashells as offerings, um, bits of tobacco, food. You also get, and I've known it in a couple of places, for in woods in Essex. Well, that's one of the woods where you get tiny little miniature teepee structures and miniature um, shelters built, but tiny little things, no bigger than, I'd say, about 8 inches in height. And I put them down. You would have to have the patience of a saint and the back of a gladiator to build one, because it's so intricate and so close to the ground. You'd be on your hands and knees making this thing for, it would take me, oh my word, and I've done bushcraft, but that small, with collecting all the twigs off the floor and little branches, it would still take about an hour and a half to weave them all together, like they have an hour and a half to 2 hours to weave them all together, without them all like a house of cards toppling down again to weave them all. And it's because it's so small, and I found that's one of the woods where I found and I believe there's fairies in there. Yeah. So and also what I like about Leon Sea, you know about the uh there's some marshland there,
Yeah.
and went walking along the marshland and saw a great there was this guy, and he had a model aircraft, and he was doing stunts with it. There's like a little tiny, uh, you can't drive down it, but it looks like a really short runway bit. And he was like, had a model aircraft there, and he was like, and I was watching it for a while, and then what caught my eye was some ruins. And I went over to the ruins, and you've got to kind of like go back onto the road, drive round, and then go down this little lane, and it stops, and then you go through a little gate as if you're going into a little woods, and it comes out on these old like castle ruins. Um, and that was a lovely experience. I would not have believed that you've got these old castle ruins there, and it belonged to a old house, I believe. Am I right in that?
And yeah, I think you're talking about Hadley Castle.
Oh,
It's
that could be it then.
amazing. Hadley Castle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Still
Hadley
got part of the
Castle,
tower there.
it's
Still got part of the tower.
yes, and it's sitting on top of the of a hill, so it overlooks other areas of Essex, and there's no light pollution or noise pollution, so it's a perfect place to go and see the stars and the moon, and yeah, and
Yeah.
I've done a few investigations over there, and one thing that we picked up that was quite interesting was links to the Knight Templar, if I remember rightly, having some links to the Knights Templar. So, but it was really interesting, a really cool location to go and investigate. Not so much if you've got spirit box. There's lots of people over there that likes to go and watch the stars. And there was the cutest day. There was like a couple, and they were laying. There was a blanket, and they were looking at the stars, and they had wine, and they were listening to Fleetwood Mac. And I just thought, well, that's life. That is
All
the best
right.
thing ever in the whole entire world. But there's
Yeah.
us with the spirit box going. Hello, does anyone want to communicate? They're probably thinking, go away. You're killing the ambiance right now. Throw a stone, touch someone.
Yeah.
They're very pleased with us, if I'm honest.
Uh,
But yeah, it
oh,
was
that's timing. Yeah.
good. Yeah.
So, so
Oh,
how
but
do
we,
you
I mean,
feel? So yeah, Leon is really good. I like Leon C. I think it's got look, but all these places, there's so much in Essex. You don't have to go very far because there's so many different places in Essex where, it's just so interesting. The places are, So to
yeah.
to to kind of like wrap up what we done um
Yes.
at the Ironworks, I would say personally that we definitely found a either a elemental. Now, elemental to me means you've got elements of earth, fire, water, and air. So, is it one of those elements you're talking about when you say elemental?
No, so an elemental is so Fae would be considered an elemental.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so an elemental is a non-human spirit, and they show themselves in a way that you would best the way that you would best kind of be able to receive them. So they show themselves in different ways. Um, I think I've ever only seen one elemental very vividly once, and that was linked to a friend's kind of warding, and I'd never seen an elemental before, and it shocked. I was a little bit shocked because I wasn't quite sure what I was looking at. And once
Mm,
they explained to me, that's just, that's the way they look. I'm like, yeah, but he had no nose, and she's like, ah. So for me, it was a really kind of strange situation. So an elemental for me, the reason why I called this being an elemental is because I didn't feel comfortable enough in calling it a demon. I didn't feel comfortable. I couldn't. I knew that we had a trickster. I knew we had, I had
mm,
someone that could. We had someone that could sense our fears and has made that known. Um,
mm,
but at the same time, I couldn't. My experience is in terms of. I think the fun thing about, I suppose, my perception is because of my development and the way that my relationship with spirit is based in spiritualism. So the way that I kind of perceive spirit and the levels of spirit is completely
mm,
different to someone who has a different kind of way of working with spirit or understanding. So I think I've just made sense of it in my own way. Um, but yeah, it was interesting, and it's such a sad thing because the location itself, it would have been perfect for any investigation team. I think public investigations are all good, but I think private ones are fantastic. And I think
mm,
for a private investigation to go in to build on that research to get a better understanding, as like an established understanding of what's happening
mm.
in the basement, because it does feel, and on an energy level, it feels like a completely different part of the building. Like, it doesn't even feel like it's part of that building. It feels like
No.
it's an investigation all within itself.
Yeah.
So it'd been
It's
good
so
to be able
quiet.
to build
So
on that.
quiet. So quiet. That
Yeah,
that that
eerie.
basement was absolute, and it was Saturday night we went, just so
Yeah,
people realise, Saturday
yeah,
night. So you can imagine Southend-on-Sea on the high street. Um, like Laura and me, but I vape, she smokes, and we were out the front, kind of. They had a shutter down, and then we're at the front. We were like laughing and watching the people go by, and they were so noisy coming out of the pubs, and they heard us laughing, so they like, laughed back, exaggerate, and it was just generally loud, busy people, like Kerry said, coming out of Kentucky Fried Chicken, fast food places, pubs, clubs, everything else, and you can hear that on the film in the different levels from ground floor right up to the very top fifth floor. You can faintly hear it up there. You go into the basement, quiet.
it's deathly quiet. So strange. And I think and every single one of us, with like when we first went down there, I think we was down there for 5 minutes, and I think it was little Laura that said, "Do you think it's a bit too quiet down here?" And I was
Mm,
like, "Do you know
yeah,
what? Yes, good, good
yeah,
point. That's a very good point. And
yeah.
it was Southend seafront, between the time of 9 and 2. So we were there for the kicking out, from the opening up. They were all getting drunk. We did a little bit of people watching from the top floor. That was interesting. And like I said, from the moment we got there, there was always something going on. I will say, on a more serious note, not paranormal related, but just raising a bit of awareness. We all made our own way home from the investigation on Saturday. And one of the lovely ladies that were working with us, there was like an attempted robbery on her. And I think
Mm,
it's so, I suppose the reason why I'm maybe bringing it up a little bit is because I think we're so used to working within the paranormal late at night. That's our normal. We're used to that. And I think sometimes we can come a little bit complacent and forget that our
mm,
surroundings can be quite dangerous. And
mm,
although there was no preparation of what was to happen to her, thankfully she's okay. She's safe. Nothing happened. She did all the right things that she was supposed to do. And she got home safely. It just shows you that I think it's good to always be mindful when you're working with spirit. Protect yourself,
mm,
guard yourself, protect your energy, be mindful of the energies that you're working with, and be
mm,
mindful that, like we said, we've spoken a little bit about Constantine Characterkoff and how things can influence others, but also
mm,
being really aware that sometimes the environments that feel quite, once we get comfortable and we're kind of okay in it, we forget that it's 2 o'clock in the morning and we're in the woods, because
yeah.
there's three or four or five of us and we're all comfortable now. We forget that
Mm,
we're in a building that's kind of like
mm,
derelict a little bit, a little bit, and we've all got
yeah.
to make our way home at 3 o'clock in the morning because
Yeah. No,
it's yeah, it's
that's
weird.
a good point, and it's a good point, and I think that, for any other people that do decide to go out and maybe go ghost hunting in a place, that's something to bear in mind, because obviously the time to go out is nighttime, because it just seems to be a time that is more conducive for spirits to come out rather than midday, perhaps. But not always the case. But uh, like Kerry said, please be careful, please be mindful, and plan your route. And if possible, go in a group when you leave, and leave in a group and stay together.
Absolutely.
Um, that would be my advice. The same goes for anybody that wants to do any cryptid or going out in the woods, abandoned places, or whatever like that. Once again, always um, try and go out in a group when you do this, especially at night, because you get a lot of unsavory sorts in woods as well, like drunks, druggies, and other things. So you have to be aware of that. Um, uh, So yeah, please just be mindful, cover your bases, and make sure that you're with company and you can get yourself home. Um, and also, Kerry was good enough to uh, offer spiritual protection as well. So when you're dealing with these entities, um, some of them do have like the hitchhiker syndrome, and that basically means that when you leave, they kind of like their essence can decide to, oh, I'm going to go along with him, I'm going to go along with her, I'm going to play tricks on them at home. They come into my domain, I'm going to go into there. There can be a certain amount of that that goes on, so you have to be able to, like with a Ouija board, almost shut it down. I think it is, Kerry.
Yeah, and I think it's all and I like the fact that you referred to the Ouija board. I think what we are doing is being mindful of the intention that you're saying, and that's all it is. Intention. I say it's setting your intention of the evening and how you're working. And for me, I do ask those that work with me in spirit, my ancestors, my guide, my loved ones, that they do allow me to work with evidence of life after life. However, that's done in a guided way. But then also at the end of the evening, setting that intention of any energy that does not belong here returns to where it belongs. It does not belong here.
Mm,
It does not belong to me. Do not belong to me. You do not belong here, and I do not give you permission. You return to where you belong. And there's lots of different ways that you can set that. I know that we need to move away a little bit from burning sage and stuff like that, but there is ways of being able to burn herbs that aren't indigenous and aren't endangered, but can have the same effect of releasing energy. And that's what you're doing. It's releasing energy that doesn't belong, that it isn't part of your own, and really setting those kind of, you're not welcome here, you're not invited here, you do not belong here,
mm,
and return to where you belong. And that's kind of how I've only ever had one experience where I've had effects in my home after an investigation. Touch wood, touch wood.
mm,
Um, I had a clearing done from a really lovely medium who's an amazing guy. And I haven't, I mean, that was really interesting. I had pots of paint pushed from the back of the wardrobe to the front of the wardrobe and thrown everywhere. I had plastic beakers thrown from one side of my kitchen into the hallway. So I had lots of really obvious
mm,
things going on in the home. Um, but again, that's not to say, the way I look at it is that spirit has been there for so long that it's unlikely, in my belief, that it's unlikely that they're just going to decide that actually, okay, I'm going to pitch off with you now. But even so, even if that is unlikely, it's always good just to set that intention of, you are not
mm.
welcome. This is not an invite.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Never
I,
mind what
I,
anyone
I,
else.
I'm the same. I kind of have been going out into woods and forests for many years, and long before I ever done videos, and I never even thought about doing videos about it. It was a very personal thing to me. Um, uh, and I know that, you see, with my protection, I know that just to let everyone kind of, after a period of time, you kind of like will know your own level, and you'll know what you're comfortable with and what you're comfortable dealing with. And also, sometimes you do get a feeling, and even with myself, I get, if you like, instruction. Now, I wouldn't say it's from spirits, but I do get, if I'm in a dodgy place, uh, I will be warned to leave or be careful, or to move over to the other side of the wood, or move away from that area. And I do believe it is a cryptid that's telling me this, a dog man that's telling me this. I've heard it. It's like a robotic kind of voice. It's a very deep voice, but it's the same as with somebody, and like yourself, Kerry, that has maybe a guide, a spiritual guide. Um, it's the same type of thing. And I very much take notice of that voice. Um, And it was that kind of thing where when I went back down into the cellar, I knew that it it wouldn't, whatever it was familiar to me, but I knew I was protected anyway. I knew I was kind of protected anyway. Yeah, I was quite okay with it. Um, but yeah, a very interesting place. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think we done it justice. I really do think we done it justice investigating that
Absolutely.
place.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And it is a shame that it's not going to be able to be investigated again, but we have some
mm,
amazing experiences there. And I have easily 8 hours worth of evidence to go through on the CCTV. So I'm really looking forward to that.
yeah,
And we can take that into our next investigation, which is a non-disclosed location at the moment, but it's going to be really interesting for us to get to. I'm really excited. Again, we're also fortunate to be into another location that has never been researched or had any paranormal experiences, investigators in before.
yep, yep. And I'm organising that other little investigation as well. I'm
Yes,
organising that,
yeah.
yeah, which is going to be, and that, funny enough, has you talking about knights and crusaders because they have very special graves, you know.
Okay.
When they were in the 12th century, when they were buried, they weren't buried. They were kind of like interned into bird. They would have a casket
Yeah.
almost, a concrete casket, but that casket would have a pic, what's the word? Uh, oh God, a sword,
Okay.
yeah, carved into it.
Okay.
And there'd be little, like a wrought iron, tiny little wrought iron gating going around it.
Oh, I've seen these. Yeah.
You do get graves where you get wrought iron covering it because of grave robbers going in to steal jewelry and gold teeth and
Yeah.
things like that years ago. But these ones were very particular. But they'd always have, and the place where I've got in mind has got one of those, quite a famous crusader. Yeah, but it's an unmarked grave. No one knows particularly who it is, but it's someone very important because they spent a lot of money on his grave.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's another place which
That's
I've got
interesting.
to find the time to go down there again and
Yeah,
just sort it out with them. Yeah, but I will,
that would be
I will. Yeah,
that'd be
but
amazing.
I wanna. Have you got anything else you'd like to share while we're on?
No, I think we've covered everything.
Okay, that's good. That's
I
good.
think we
I
have.
think I have as well. Yeah, I think we have. Hmm. Um, I want to thank everyone that's commented and taken the time out to drop in and say hello. And um, just want to thank everyone also that did come on to the investigation, both the public and the private one. I think we ought to thank them because, spending their time with us, with me anyway, it's, they deserve a medal.
Oh, never. We are in safe hands with
um,
you, Phil.
and, but thoroughly enjoyed it. Um, and all thanks to you in organising that. You've done a wonderful job. I know it took time and a lot of effort and a lot of emails to get that done. And I do, on behalf of everyone that went and everyone that viewed the video, really thank you. Thank you, Kerry, very much
Mm,
for organising that.
no
Um,
worries. Thank you.
and yeah, thank you once again for the hosts and for David Hobbs as well. And Wayne, who we met down there as well.
Yeah, Wayne Seedham from
Um,
Spooky Laurie and
yeah,
David Hobbs from the Essex UFO Paranormal Group. They're both really
yeah,
interesting. So
yeah.
Wayne Seedham's author, and there is lots of speakers coming up at the David Hobbs, the Essex UFO Paranormal Group as well. So if you're in Southend in Essex and you're interested, go and give them both a little like, follow,
Mm,
and reach out to them.
yeah, definitely. Very nice blokes, both of them. Really, really nice guys. I've met them both, and yeah, really nice guys. So yeah, and once again, thank you everyone for your time. Thank you, Kerry, for coming on. Do
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having me.
And yeah, on behalf of Seventh Sanctum Podcast and Dogman Teepee Hunting, have yourself a very good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.